From afar, the castle looms like a dying ember, a flickering remnant of defiance on the edge of twilight. The air is heavy with an ominous stillness, as if the surrounding shadows themselves conspire against its walls. This stronghold belongs to Udono, a retainer of a powerful clan. Yet tonight it stands on the precipice of tragedy. Beyond the castle's reach, the clan holds the wife and son of a rising young warrior hostage, a commander whose name will one day resonate throughout history as Tokugawa Ieyasu. Unseen and unheard, Ieyasu's operatives slip into the fortress under the cover of darkness. They move like whispers of the night, precise and unrelenting. As the guards fall one by one in eerie silence, panic spreads among the defenders. Fear gives birth to paranoia, and rumors swirl of betrayal from within. Before anyone can rally, the invaders strike a decisive blow, igniting the castle from within. Flames lick the heavens as thick smoke chokes the air, shrouding the chaos in an apocalyptic haze. In the ensuing bedlam, Udono's forces are systematically destroyed. His garrison, overwhelmed and leaderless, collapses into disarray. Udono himself meets a grim end, his head claimed by the intruders. Even his two sons are seized in the melee, noble captives destined to serve a higher purpose. Their lives become the bargaining chips that secure the release of Ieyasu's own family from captivity, turning tragedy into triumph. The young commander stands resolute amidst the aftermath, his strategic acumen and unyielding will solidified by the victory. He recognizes the brilliance of those who carried out the infiltration, commending the nameless warriors for their unparalleled skill. History will later immortalize them as Shinobi, shadows in human form. Centuries later, the world will know them by another name: ninja, legends born from the ashes of Udono's castle and the rise of Tokugawa Ieyasu's legacy. In medieval Japan, the term shinobi did not denote a distinct class of warriors, but rather a method, a temporary role defined by the mastery of stealth, deception, and subterfuge. These tactics, born of necessity, were shaped by the relentless turmoil of an era marked by political fragmentation and unending conflict. By the late 15th century, the collapse of centralized authority had reshaped Japan's power dynamics, transferring control to regional warlords and clans. In this volatile environment, power belonged only to those who could seize it and defend it with cunning as much as might. As the strongest warlords of the era, such as Oda Nobunaga, began their ruthless campaigns to unify the nation, their ambitions threatened to extinguish the independence of smaller domains. Across the fragmented landscape, other lords scrambled to build armies capable of both open battle and clandestine maneuvering. Military strength alone was no longer sufficient. Survival demanded secrecy, adaptability, and a mastery of stealth. The practitioners of shinobi techniques were far from the shadow-cloaked figures popularized by modern myth. Instead, they thrived in anonymity, blending seamlessly into the rhythms of everyday life. A traveling monkey trainer performing tricks for curious onlookers might be discreetly mapping the defenses of a town. A merchant bartering goods in a castle courtyard could just as easily be memorizing the movements of the lord's retainers. A wandering poet reciting verses by moonlight might carry secret messages in his tattered scrolls. Even among samurai, traditionally associated with strict codes of honor, there were those tasked with acts of stealth, espionage, or sabotage. Common soldiers, too, could be entrusted with such missions, using their familiarity with the terrain and the enemy's habits to gain the upper hand. These agents moved unnoticed, their skills honed not to draw attention but to vanish into the fabric of life itself, leaving no trace of their true purpose. In this era of relentless upheaval, the art of shinobi became an indispensable tool of survival, a silent weapon wielded in the shadows as the great warlords vied for supremacy over a fractured nation. By night, the tall grass becomes a battleground, its stillness concealing a lethal force. Warriors lie in silence for hours, blending with the shadows, their patience honed to the edge of endurance. As enemy patrols draw near, these operatives spring from their hiding places, severing lines of retreat and dispatching their foes with ruthless precision. These are the Shinobi, masters of stealth and ambush, whose skills are forged in the crucible of chaos. But not all Shinobi come from noble origins. In the aftermath of Japan's fractured authority, the forests and mountains became refuges for outlaws, brigands who preyed on villages and travelers. Pragmatic warlords, recognizing the value in such ruthless expertise, turned these outcasts into soldiers of fortune. Records from one clan tell of brigands who were granted stipends and a chance at redemption. Sworn into the Lord's service, they became hunters of their own kind, rooting out thieves and enforcing order within the domains they once terrorized. The fear these figures inspired was profound, their presence so unnerving that even the fortified castles of the great lords were not deemed impervious. The Hojo clan, known for its discipline and caution, left meticulous records of defensive measures against Shinobi. Upon hearing of an advancing enemy force, one Hojo leader cautioned that Shinobi would not strike in bitter cold unless the moonlight guided their movements. Still, he urged extreme vigilance, rotating watchmen thrice through the night, rolling stones down steep paths to deter climbers, and tossing torches into dark recesses to expose hidden intruders. This pervasive sense of unease reflects the era's violent uncertainty. Japan remains fractured, its provinces embroiled in relentless war. Warlords consolidate their power through alliances, betrayals, and brutal conquest, each striving for dominance in a nation on the brink of unification. Yet even amid the ceaseless bloodshed, a grim prophecy lingers. Order will not be restored until the land is soaked in a final, decisive wave of violence, a massive shedding of blood that will forge a new era. In the shadows of this unfolding drama, the Shinobi remain both tools and terrors, wielded by the ambitious and feared by all. Oda Nobunaga, the ambitious and unrelenting daimyo of the Oda clan, has assembled an army unlike any Japan has seen before. Tens of thousands of seasoned samurai and fresh recruits march under his banners, bolstered by the revolutionary power of arquebus firearms, deadly weapons introduced by Portuguese traders in 1543. These firearms, strategically deployed in tightly coordinated volleys, have already proven devastating on the battlefield, giving Nobunaga's forces an edge that no rival can afford to ignore. Yet, to achieve his vision of unifying Japan under his rule, Nobunaga must press into the rugged, unforgiving terrain of mountain passes and hidden valleys, where traditional warfare falters. Among these regions lie the small but fiercely independent territories of Koka and Iga, lands not dominated by power-hungry warlords, but by loose confederacies of jisamurai, rural samurai who share deep connections with the common folk. In these lands, governance is a shared responsibility, with decisions rooted in cooperation rather than tyranny. This unity has forged a community determined to defend itself against any invader. The people of Iga and Koka have cultivated skills rarely seen elsewhere in Japan. Alongside mastery of swordplay and archery, they have refined espionage, stealth, and guerrilla tactics to an art form. Their fighters are as adept at infiltrating enemy lines as they are at launching devastating ambushes, disappearing into the mountains before their enemies can retaliate. It was these skilled warriors from Koka who were recruited to carry out the stealthy assault on Udono, proving their worth as shadowy agents of war. As Nobunaga's forces expand into neighboring territories, resistance inevitably arises. The fighters of Iga and Koka, resolute in their commitment to freedom, rally to aid neighboring regions in their defiance. However, the sheer scale and organization of Nobunaga's military machine present an overwhelming challenge. The arquebus-wielding divisions of the Oda clan cut through traditional defenses, their relentless advances leaving little room for guerrilla fighters to strike effectively. Despite their cunning and bravery, the defenders of Iga and Koka find themselves overmatched, their efforts unable to halt the march of Nobunaga's conquest. As the flames of resistance flicker and fade, Nobunaga's ambitions push him closer to unifying Japan. Yet, the legacy of Iga and Koka will not be forgotten. Their expertise in stealth and subterfuge will shape the mythos of Japan's shinobi, leaving a mark on history even as their lands fall under the shadow of Nobunaga's banner. By 1574, Oda Nobunaga had dismantled the crumbling remnants of the central shogunate, declaring himself the de facto ruler of a fractured Japan. To mark the triumph and usher in the new year, Nobunaga orchestrated a macabre display of dominance. The gilded skulls of his vanquished foes, esteemed leaders who once dared oppose him, were paraded before the court. This grotesque spectacle signaled not only his ruthless authority, but his willingness to annihilate any opposition to his vision of a unified nation. Among those who would challenge his supremacy were the fiercely independent confederacies of Koka and Iga, communities of warriors who valued their autonomy above all else. Having crushed Koka, Nobunaga turned his sights to Iga, whose defiance had long been a thorn in his side. By 1579, Nobunaga's son, Oda Nobukatsu, led an invasion force into Iga, determined to extinguish the resistance and avenge the earlier deaths of Oda's soldiers at their hands. Yet the people of Iga were prepared. Their network of spies and informants tracked Nobukatsu's every move, allowing their warriors to orchestrate devastating ambushes. As Nobukatsu's forces advanced through narrow mountain passes, rocky outcroppings, and the fertile rice fields of the valleys, Iga's fighters struck with precision. Thousands of invaders were slain, their banners toppled, and their cries lost in the wilderness. The blood-soaked fields bore witness to the power of guerrilla warfare against a larger, less nimble force. When word of the humiliating defeat reached Nobunaga, his wrath was swift and merciless. He castigated Nobukatsu for the failure, condemning him in no uncertain terms. Such an unspeakable debacle is an affront to the Oda name. It is miscreant behavior, unworthy of my lineage. If your conduct truly mirrors this disaster, I shall not permit the parental bond between us to endure. Nobunaga's rebuke reflected the weight of his ambitions and the toll failure exacted within his family. But the failure only stoked Nobunaga's resolve. Streams of war banners, their emblems painted in defiance of Iga's resilience, converged upon the region. Samurai, with hardened faces and gleaming blades, poured into Iga like a relentless tide, their scowling visages foretelling the slaughter to come. The invasion was no longer a mere campaign. It was a crusade to obliterate Iga's defiance, ensuring that no corner of Japan would escape the iron grip of Nobunaga's rule. As war descended upon the hills and valleys, the fate of Iga hung precariously, on the edge of annihilation. In 1581, vengeance comes to Iga on the boots of an army 60,000 strong, descending like a storm from 6 directions. This is the unrelenting wrath of Oda Nobunaga, a force so overwhelming that nowhere in Iga is safe. The campaign is not merely a battle. It is a methodical extermination designed to erase any trace of defiance. The invaders move with ruthless precision, leaving scorched earth in their wake. Villages are razed, homes set ablaze, and entire families of Iga's warriors are slaughtered without mercy. Fortifications fall one by one, overrun by superior numbers and firepower. Even Buddhist temples, symbols of peace and sanctuary, are not spared. Chronicles from the time recount the horrific aftermath. The corpses of priests and laymen were piled high in the courtyards, scattered like strange autumn leaves lying deep in a mournful wind. The land itself seems to weep under the weight of such devastation, its valleys and forests littered with ash and blood. As Nobunaga's forces tighten their grip, his son, Oda Nobukatsu, captures a key castle, marking a turning point in the campaign. Victorious and eager to witness the fruits of his vengeance, Nobunaga himself arrives in Iga to survey the ruined lands. He walks among the ashes of a proud region, now reduced to smoldering rubble, the echoes of resistance fading under his iron will. But even in their darkest hour, Iga's warriors refuse to yield completely. A later account tells of a daring attack. 3 Iga shinobi, emerging from the shadows of the crumbling land, strike at Nobunaga's entourage. Armed with small cannons, they bombard his party, killing several of his retainers and leaving chaos in their wake. The attack is a desperate act of defiance, a final reminder that the spirit of IGA is not so easily extinguished. Nobunaga, however, survives, his indomitable presence unshaken by the assault. One final stronghold remains, its defenders battered but unbroken. Within its walls lies the last flicker of resistance, the final bastion of a proud people who have withstood the unthinkable. As Nobunaga's forces close in, the fate of IGA hangs by a thread, the outcome a foregone conclusion. But their legacy, carved in blood and shadow, will endure long after the last fortress falls. Kashiwara Castle is surrounded, and it is said that the outnumbered defenders of Agar resort to shinobi ways. Some sneak out disguised as beggars and plant torches to create the illusion of a great army pursuing the enemy. The diversion is discovered, but the defenders persist. Night after night, they descend the dark hill, appear in the invaders' camps, and slaughter dozens with fire and blade. Faced with starvation, however, the garrison eventually surrenders. IGA is divided among Nobunaga's generals. Any lingering rebel warriors are driven into seclusion, destined to become legends with their conquered compatriots. For even as Nobunaga is attacked by a traitor and dies the following year, the cause of reunifying Japan is taken up and realized by others, including Ieyasu. Relative peace and stability afford less opportunity for battlefield honor and shinobi tactics. And so in IGA and Koka, a genuine history of impressive stealth resistance is embellished with tales of specialized ninja clans possessing exclusive regional shinobi knowledge. Soon evolved the myths of shinobi as masterful assassins in black belonging to shadowy orders. Aspects seemingly so central to the idea of a ninja that a scholar is left wondering if a true ninja ever existed at all. If he was the ego warrior, the killer in the grass, the wandering poet, or none of them. The stealth agents across Japan, as one pair of scholars notes, belong to heterogeneous groups united only by their skills in irregular warfare. They became ninja only retrospectively, and so the ninja in history remains as elusive as his reputation suggests. Some commanders who utilized ninja-style warfare drew inspiration from the ancient Chinese military strategies of Sun Tzu. Interestingly, Japan and China still maintain strategic ties today, though this is rarely highlighted in mainstream media. It's not surprising, considering how the news landscape often feels dominated by a narrow selection of stories, each shaped by the biases of their respective outlets. I recently found a solution to this problem with Ground News, a platform that consolidates articles from around the world and provides the context that mainstream media often overlooks. For example, I came across an article about recent leadership talks between Japan and China. Ground News showed me that, out of 30 articles, 96% came from center and right-leaning sources, revealing what the platform calls a blind spot in left-leaning coverage. It's fascinating to compare how narratives differ between sources tied to the Japanese government, corporate interests, and independent media, all displayed side by side to provide a broader perspective.